Okay, so we are doing interactions, man's impact on the environment, sample questions. Pollution affects the environment. The diagram below shows 3 points, A, B, and C of the river. So this is point A, this is point B, and this is point C. So we need to note that the downstream is actually going this way based on the arrow. It's going this way, so it's going this way, so it's going this way. So pollution will travel downstream. So this part will be more polluted than this part of the river. Okay, so if you imagine the river going down some more, this is going to be more polluted than this part because the water travels downstream. Now, a farm will produce pollution from the fertilizers that they use. A treatment plant will depend on a treatment plant. This is to treat the water. All right. A factory generally also will produce pollution. So therefore, this is going to produce some pollution, this is going to produce some pollution, and this is going to keep it. So C and B will be more polluted than A over here. Okay, so at which points A, B, and C will the river be the most polluted? So A and B, this is wrong. B and C, this is correct. A and C is wrong. A, B, and C is wrong. So most polluted will be B and C. The answer is number 2. Now let's look at the next question. Daria obtained water samples from different parts of a river K, L, and M. As shown below, the arrow shows the direction of the flow of river. So let's take a look at the river. So the arrow is pointing this way. So the water is coming from this way to this way to this way. And there's another stream from here all the way to joining this one as well. So let's take a look. She put 30 fishes into each water sample. So you have water samples at L, you have water samples at M and K. So number of fish alive after 2 weeks, there's 5 fishes, 30 fishes, and 15 fishes. So just based on this part of the question, you can see that this is the most polluted and this is the least polluted. Okay, and there's if you look at the river water, you'll know again downstream over here will be more polluted than upstream. So this is less polluted, this is less polluted, less pollution over here. All right, so downstream will have more pollution. So what can Daria conclude from her observation? The water is the most polluted at L. Is it true? All right, this is not true because this is the least polluted because there are the most number of fishes alive. The water is the least polluted at M. This is also not true. M is somewhere in the middle. All right, so most is here, least is L. M is somewhere in the middle, so this is also not true. The factory waste caused most of the fish to die in the water sample taken from M. So if you take the water sample from here, the factory waste comes out here and it will flow in this direction. Therefore, it will not be the factory waste that kills the fishes at M. All right, you need to find something upstream of M to find what killed the fishes. So probably it is the farm that come out with all the pesticides and whatnot, right? That will kill the fishes at M. The factory waste and the pesticide from the farm caused most of the fish to die in the water sample taken from K. So let's take a look at K. So it is downstream of the factory. It is also downstream of the farm. So therefore, the factory waste and pesticide from the farm caused most of the fishes. This is correct because it is downstream of the farm and factory. All right, so therefore this is correct. Okay, let's look at this question. The graph below shows the change in temperature on Earth in the last few hundred years. So this is year 1800, year 2010. So generally, there is an upward trend in the temperature. All right, from last time till now, there's an upward trend. So name a greenhouse gas responsible for the change in temperature shown in the graph above. One possible greenhouse gas is carbon dioxide. All right, there are other greenhouse gases as well, but this is the most common one that you learned. So how does the gas in A, which is carbon dioxide, cause the change in temperature on Earth? So the gas will trap the heat from the sun, therefore causing the temperature on Earth to increase. All right, you need to know this. It will trap the heat from the sun and not allow it to be released from the Earth, and therefore the temperature on Earth will increase. So the third part, explain how the loss of trees can lead to global warming. So number of trees, when it reduces, there will be less photosynthesis, and when there is less photosynthesis, there will be lesser carbon dioxide absorbed by the trees, and therefore there will be an increase in carbon dioxide, which will increase amount of heat, the trapping of the heat of the sun, and therefore it will lead to an increase in temperature or increase in global warming. Now, there needs to be a certain kind of logic that you have. So the first part of the question is loss of trees. So you need to say loss of trees first. So when you have loss of trees, or when the number of trees decrease, what happens after the number of trees decrease? The question is actually asking you for your train of thought from here to here, because the question says loss of trees lead to global warming, which is over here. All right, so the question gave you the first and the last point, and they want you to write down the points in between. So you need to write down loss of trees. What happens after that? There'll be less photosynthesis. What happens when there's less photosynthesis? There'll be lesser carbon dioxide absorbed by the trees. So what happens when there's lesser carbon dioxide? There'll be more carbon dioxide in the environment or in the atmosphere. And what happens if there's more carbon dioxide in the atmosphere? There'll be an increase in trapping of the heat of the sun. And so what if you trap the heat of the sun? You will have an increase in temperature, or also known as increase in global warming. Okay, so this is the train of thought, or the logical sequence from one point to another point to another point to another point, and finally to what the question is looking for. So if you miss any part of this out, then there'll be lesser marks for you. Especially, this is a 1 mark question, so it's not that important. Especially if there's a 2 mark question, it's critical. So just imagine, right, if I say there's a lesser trees and I erase this away. Alright, so lesser trees lead to less carbon dioxide absorbed. But why? Alright, so the teacher will ask you, why does lesser trees lead to less carbon dioxide absorbed? So you need to say that because there's lesser photosynthesis, and that's why there's lesser carbon dioxide absorbed. Okay, or likewise, if I say there's lesser trees, which leads to less photosynthesis, and immediately it leads to increase in carbon dioxide and therefore increase in trapping heat of the sun. So the teacher will then ask you, why? Why does lesser photosynthesis lead to increase in carbon dioxide? And then you must say it's because of it's because of the lesser photosynthesis will reduce the amount of carbon dioxide absorbed by the plants, right? By the plants, and therefore you have increasing carbon dioxide. Alright, so that's really important. Let's look at this question. Deforestation by burning trees causes haze that is hazardous to human health. CT wanted to find out which type of mask can protect the human respiratory system the best. She set up the following experiments using 4 types of mask and similar flasks. So first you have the mask E, F, G and H, and then you have air pumped out, which means air will go in and air will come out of this. All right, so you'll trap some of the haze particles over here. So let's see which one is the best. She placed the 4 flasks outdoors during the haze period and pumped out air from each of the flasks for 30 minutes. She then removed the masks and observed the amount of particles on each of the masks. She drew her observations shown below. So mask E, F, G, and H. So I mean, even before looking at the question, you should roughly guess that she's trying to find out which is the best mask. And the best mask is the one that traps the most particles. Alright, because I want the particles to trap and not go into my lungs. So this is something like your lungs. So generally this is a better one. So this is the best. And not so good. So again, I like to draw my line from the most to the least particle trap. I have my E, I have my H, G, and F. Okay, even before I read the questions, this should be the things I do. Now, based on City's experiment, which mask should she use to protect herself from the particles in the haze? So I know my best mask is actually E over here. All right, so I'll write down, I will choose mask E. Give a reason for your answer because it traps the most particles and will therefore protect our lungs from the haze particles. Alright, so that's why. Explain how placing the 4 flasks outdoors during non-hazy days as compared to hazy days would make the results less accurate. So non-hazy days, there will be no or few particles to trap. So therefore, no results can be collected. Alright, so because non-hazy days, there are no particles in the air for here to trap, so all of them will be like, so it will look something like this, A, B, C, D. So this one maybe will have 3 particles, this one 1 particle, and then 2 particles. Okay, based on this, you cannot really tell which is the best. This might just be a fluke that you get 3 particles. So deforestation causes other negative effects on the environment other than air pollution. State 2 other effects of deforestation and explain how deforestation causes these effects. So that's a 2-mark question. So this is 1 mark. This is 1 mark. So this is half mark. This is half, half, and half. Alright, so make sure you get all the 4 parts. I'll show you how. So the first one is global warming. Alright, so how deforestation causes this effect? Less trees, which leads to an increase in carbon dioxide, which leads to an increase in trapping heat from the sun, which leads to increase in temperature, also known as global warming. Alright, so global warming, there's a decrease in the number of trees, increase in the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. Alright, trapping heat from the sun, and then there will be increase in temperature and therefore global warming. Another bad thing is actually what you call loss of habitat. And you have lesser trees, you have lesser food, shelter for animals, and therefore you have fewer animals. Okay, so this one is called loss of habitat. Basically, the habitat means the places that animals and plants stay. So we have fewer trees, you have fewer food and shelter for animals, and therefore you have lesser animals in the ecology. A third possible one is actually more landslides. So what this means, because there are less trees, which means less roots to hold on the ground, which means the soil can be washed away when there is rain. Alright, so there's more landslides because there are lesser trees than the roots. There are fewer roots to hold the soil to the ground, and therefore the soil will be washed away when there is increased rain. Okay, let's take a look at this question. Rita wanted to find out how polluted water affects the growth of plants. She obtained 3 water samples, A, B, and C, and measured the amount of light that can pass through the water using a light sensor and with a data logger. The results are recorded in the table below. Water sample A, B, and C, amount of light passed through is this. So 80, 50, and 120. So again, let's rank down most polluted to the least polluted. So which one is the most polluted? It is the one with the least light coming through. Alright, so this is better write down polluted. So the one with the most polluted is the least light passing through, which is B. And the least polluted is the most light coming through, which is C. And therefore A is in the middle. She then placed similar water plants in similar containers containing water from 3 different sources and shown a table lamp at 20 cm from the water plants. After 1 hour, she measured the amount of gas collected in the syringe. So based on the results from the first experiment, arrange in order the amount of gas collected in the syringe for the different water samples, starting from the least to the most. So I'm going to do, this is gas collected. Alright, so this is least to the most. Okay, so this line is actually important because it gives you a clear understanding. You're starting from the least and you're climbing up to the most. So therefore, most polluted should be the least gas collected. The least polluted should be the most gas collected. So it's B, A, C over here. So least to the most, B, A, C. That's right, B, A, C. Okay, let's look at this second part. Describe how Rita should conduct a control experiment to show that polluted water affects the growth of plants. So she wants to do a control to see whether polluted water will affect the growth of the plants. So what should your control be if you want to test for polluted water? So your control should be non-polluted water. Alright, do you understand? So you need to find non-polluted water in order to find out what affects the growth of the plant. So therefore, she should use clear or non-polluted water as the control, so that as she puts in polluted water, then she will see the difference. So explain how placing the experiment in a dark room helps to make the results of the experiment more accurate. Basically, if you put it where there's a sun, and you place your plant over here, and you place a light bulb over here, alright? So there are two sources of light, one from the light bulb and one from the sun. So if you place it in a dark room, what happens? You ensure that the only source of light is from the light bulb and not from the sun. So how to make the results more accurate is to ensure that the only source of light is from the light bulb. Okay, so because otherwise there will be extra sources of light which is not accurate.